Can I just start with understanding you? You know, this remarkable record with Duquesne and with Quantum Fund and George Soros and the relationship you've had. Where are you in your life?
You mean what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm still managing money very actively.
For family or for?
Family and the Family Foundation.
Right.
So I go to work about 6 and I come home at 6, so I'm doing that 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
I'm still in love with markets. The only thing that's changed is I'm not competing anymore, so I'm not managing other people's money, but I love markets and I love the intellectual challenge as much as I ever have.
Is that what you love about markets, the intellectual challenge?
Yes, also I like
love
to
being rich.
I like no, not so much being rich as I like to win. I have a disease. It's a competitive disease that it gives me a thrill to win. But
does it give you a thrill also to win and to be better than someone else, which is winning?
Well, I don't know whether you're better than someone else, but it gives me a thrill to have better results than someone else, yes.
Yeah. And where did you get that? Where does the competitive spirit come from? Do you know? Or you can't remember when you didn't have it?
I don't know. I remember being a brat when I was little. We used to play board games at our house constantly, and I really did not like to lose when I'd play board games, and just something I was born with. It's somewhat of a curse, but it also has its advantages in terms of pushing you to perform.
Yeah, and pushing, and therefore, and with success, widening your opportunities to do a range of things.
Yes, yes.
But beyond that, what is it about markets that's magical for people who love the idea of what they not only represent, but the challenge they offer?
Yes. So I'd say there's two things. Number one, I love trying to put a puzzle together, visualize the future, and particularly if you have a different view than other people. And if you do that right, the security prices in the future will reflect that. And there's a great satisfaction to having solved that puzzle. And the nice thing is, you get your grades in the paper every day. There's no subjectivity in the money management business. It's right there. And if you're screwing up, those numbers
There's
scream
a metric
at you.
every day.
Yeah, and I love the objectivity of that. I always have.
George Soros. And the relationship the two of you had, I mean, because you were there, you were the guy, when the great decision based on the devaluation of the pound happened.
Yes.
Right? You bet right.
Yes.
And you bet a lot.
Yes.
And you made $1 billion plus on one day.
Something like that, yes.
Something like that, you know precisely.
Okay. True.
So who has, I'll use a polite term, who's the bigger nerve, you or George?
Oh, I'd say
Who
George.
has more ice water?
George has more ice water than I do. I'd say if you looked at our records, they're very comparable.
Right.
When he ran quantum and I ran quantum, they're almost within decimal points. And I'd say George made more spectacular bets, and my record was a little more. The bets were more consistent, but the results were pretty much the same.
But do you agree with him in terms of that? You know, if you see an opportunity, just go all in.
Oh, yeah. If there's one thing I learned from George and what made me a better money manager because of George, it's exactly that. It's not whether you're right or wrong. It's how much money you make when you're right and how much you lose when you're wrong.
Yeah.
So,
and how confident you are that you're right.
Yes, but up until that point, I had a very good record, but it was only after I was with George that I learned how much you should really press a bet when your confidence level is extremely high. I did fine before I was there, don't get me wrong, but it was amazing to watch that man when we had something we really believed in, to see the way he would size risk and reward.
Yeah. And you cherish the fact that the relationship is one in which, as I asked you when you sat down, you know, we're friends, we have different lives, but he once said, you know, you're not only a great money manager, but you're also a partner.
No, I have very fond feelings with George. It was the best 12 years of my life. My 3 children were born. I learned a lot. It was an exciting time. And, you know, we're still in touch. We're on different political sides.
That's exactly where I was going. There's been a build-up to that.
It doesn't matter in terms of our friendship at all.
You're totally at different places, aren't you?
Yes, but the respect is there. So, I mean, maybe Washington could learn something, because we couldn't be different politically, but I think the mutual respect is there. So
define how you're different politically.
I think George, in traditional terms, he would be considered more on the left.
Right.
And I would be considered more on the right, particularly on the non-social issues, on the economic issues. Okay. He's much more pro-regulation. He thinks markets go wild. I love free markets. I'm anti-regulation.
Yeah, and are you, beyond being on the right, more libertarian?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, yes.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not on the right on social issues, and I'm certainly anti-crony capitalism.
No, exactly.
So I have some strange views in terms of being on the right that normal corporations may not particularly like.
We have a lot of views that normal corporation may not like. Lots of them, don't you? I mean,
sure, I'm sure everybody does, but yes.
And that's why we want to go through this. But I mean, what was surprising to me, actually, I think that to understand what you're arguing for is not necessarily predictable from where you come from politically.
Oh, no, that's absolutely true. Yeah. In fact, I think one of the problems of getting this message through, which is so obvious to me, it's as obvious as the pound was, and then some in terms of predictability, it has a longer time frame, is that it has been associated with austerity and the right wing.
Right.
And I don't look at it that way at all.
Nor did I when I heard it.
I think, in many ways, the left wing should be more excited, or as excited as the right wing, and that's actually what we found out on the road with the students. The kids at Berkeley loved it. The kids at Brown loved it. So it's the same conclusion, but it's a different messaging.
Okay. I mean, I think I wanted to set this up so that we can have you then explain to me what it is that you're on the road talking about, and what this and what is the central idea and why you're so passionate about it. But I wanted to understand where you come from politically, from the right, maybe more libertarian, but and at the same time the enormous respect you have.
I'm an independent who would be considered center on social issues, and probably somewhere to the right on the economics. And you've been very much opposed to the present
administration.
Well, I voted for him the first time.
First time.
But I've been opposed to just about everything he's done since I voted for him, yes.
What was your problem with health care?
My problem with health care, we're talking about Obamacare?
Yes.
I believed it was a once-in-a-generation opportunity to separate this thing from the corporation and make the consumer of health care actually have choice and have skin in the game. I think one of the big problems with the healthcare system is we go to the doctor, we have no incentive to shop, we have no incentive to see what the costs are, and as long as your corporation is paying the bills and you don't see that bill, that's the way it's going to remain. I guess my biggest...
So there's no, therefore, intelligence at the choice, at the decision point.
Right. There's none whatsoever.
Or self-interest.
Right. We have taken away the market, which you could use very much so to solve this problem. We've completely taken out of the equation. I guess my problem with Obamacare, the more I understand now, is it's also dishonest. And by that I mean, so we're taking young, healthy people and making them buy plans with stuff in them they don't need, to subsidize people with preconditions and older people.
And unless you do that, the system will not work.
And I'm okay if you want to tax Stan Druckenmiller and you want to tell him, we're taxing you to support people with pre-existing conditions and sick people. I'm not okay with messing up all this marketing and making me have maternity and all kinds of stuff in there as some kind of hidden scheme to make that subsidization. If we as a society want to choose to implement universal health care the way they want, let's at least be honest about it, and let's just put a tax on all of us and say, we choose to do this. Let's not do some hidden
And you'd be willing
system.
to pay that kind of tax?
Would I be willing to pay
Yes.
for it? I'd feel a lot better paying for it as a tax than mucking up the whole incentives within the healthcare system. Would I be willing to pay for it? Yes, I think I would.
So you're going around to college campuses, and you have a central theory, which I referred to in the introduction, which is that you believe that it's terribly unfair what we are doing to young people today, that we're burdening them with circumstances that we didn't have so that they can take care of us.
Yes.
That's very simplified, so you expand.
So the way our entitlement system works is it's not pay as you go. It was set up a long time ago so current workers pay for current seniors.
Right.
And because of the senior lobby versus young people, because young people don't vote and they don't give money to parties, they have other things on their mind, as you know.
And are not organized.
The seniors in our society have been taking an increasing share for the better part of 40 years from money allotted to youth and investment. And this is somewhat alarming, has been somewhat alarming, but now is extremely alarming because the baby boom, which took place from 1947 to 1967, and that was 65 years ago, means the number of seniors is about to explode. So the share of the pie that has gone to the elderly is now about to be distributed to a lot more people. Specifically, Charlie, we are creating 8,000 new seniors on the entitlement payrolls every day now. That's because of the demographics. And we're only producing 2,000 young adult workers to support them. That number goes to 11,000 by 2029. So you have a combination of too much pie going to one sector, and now that sector growing dramatically relative to the sector that's going to support them, which should set up a big fiscal problem sometime in the next 20 to 40 years. I guess what's different
Probably not in the next 10 or 15.
I don't think in the next 10 or 15, but I don't know. But let me tell you why I don't care if it's in the next 10 or 15. Because every day we wait is money that the next generation has to pay, whether it's 10 or 15, or whether it's 20, or whether it's 30, or whether it's 40. Every day you wait, and these obligations and these promises and these debts accumulate, means that the next generation will pay that bill as opposed to seniors today. So there's a terrible unfairness about what we're looking at today. And as you probably know, one of the problems is we are allocating more and more resources toward transfer payments to senior and away from things like Head Start, NIH grants, investments in education. So you're also having the seed corn eating problem.
Okay, there are lots of things that come out of all this. Number one, I hear you. And I think other people recognize the problem we face, but you're basically saying to young people, you got to do something. You got to get organized. You have to take it in your responsibility. Otherwise, you're going to face a crushing burden. True?
Yes, they're going to.
And you will have to pay more, and you'll have to pay more, and you won't get out as much because people who are older are getting out what they were promised.
Yes, one of the things I bristle at is that I've read in some of these things that I'm anti-entitlement.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get at that. That's where I'm going.
I'm not anti-entitlement. I want youth today to enjoy the benefits of the Social Security net and that retirees today enjoy. And if we continue to share the pie the way we're doing it, there's going to be nothing left for the youth of today. So it's not that I'm anti-entitlement, it's that I'm for sustainability of entitlements.
And for those who stand up to say, look, we just got to let the baby boom generation get through the system, and then we can figure all this out.
Well, that's where my day job comes in, and that is total nonsense. Because what happens is that's the rat through the python theory.
Exactly.
Once the rat goes through the python, you're fine.
Right.
by the time the 20 or 30 years are up, when the baby booms are over, the debt is so high that the interest payments alone start to become bigger than the entitlements were during the 20 to 30 year period.
Are you at all encouraged over the fact that the debt is going down and that?
Oh, none whatsoever.
You see that as temporary. You see that as small. You see that as what?
That's tiny potatoes. That's just a short-term cyclical phenomenon that has nothing to do with entitlements. Nothing. We are right on the front end of a demographic surge that is going to cause investment spending to go crazy. Let me just put it in perspective for you. So the next 10 years, okay, and this is with the administration's optimistic budget, the growth, not the spending, the growth in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid is going to be $780 billion. The growth in spending on children is going to be $20 billion. Okay, that's what you're looking at. Now, I don't know what kind of society you want, but this is just transfer payments to the elderly, who, as I mentioned earlier, have already been increasing their share of the pie for the last 40 years. I think it's unfair, most of all, and secondly, it will set up an unsustainable situation down the road. We can't afford it.
So here's the alternative argument, too, when you look at this, as you've heard before. Take Larry Summers, somebody who's, I'm sure, intellect you have some respect for, argues that all the talk about entitlement reform, and some understands down the road the fears that you are pointing to, says what we need to do is create growth in the economy, and that the growth in the economy will take care of all the problems that Stan is worried about.
Okay, so A, it won't take care of all the problems I'm talking about. B, I'm very sympathetic
I'm simplifying that a little bit.
I'm very sympathetic to what Larry is saying, who I consider a friend. So let me just I hate to get too numbery here, okay? But let me just, so 40 years ago, and this is an argument Larry would be very sympathetic to. 40 years ago, we spent 32% of federal outlays on investment, government investment. That would include things like infrastructure, education, R&D.
Science, exploration,
and we
space.
spent about 30% on transfer payments to the elderly. We now spend 68% on transfer payments, but investments are down to 15%. So I think to Larry's point, what did we get out of the investment? Well, we got the internet, we got GPS,
right.
We got the human genome.
Yeah.
So
that's where you agreement. That
I totally agree, and if you look at sequester,
that the investments are worthwhile and important and crucial to our future.
Yes, but we are cutting the investments so we can continue to let transfer payments to the elderly grow at a very rapid rate. We cannot do both.
Or we're cutting the investments because we do not have a realistic look at where of taxes, which you're prepared to have a realistic look at. Yes? In other words, you're not coming here as a representative sort of the view often expressed by the 30 members of Congress, although you had some reservations, obviously, about the health fund, defunding the health care, even though you expressed reservations about it. Your point was that you did not, as I understand where you are, you thought it was silly, maybe to use your own words, to try to attach defunding to Medicare to the debt ceiling. On the other hand, you'd be prepared to attach something else to raising the debt ceiling in order to have some sanity to address the problem you're talking about. Am I right or wrong in interpreting?
Well, I was 100% against tying Obamacare to a government shutdown.
That is defunding Obamacare, yeah.
I was 100% against that.
Right.
That argument was decided, and as much as I didn't like the conclusion, I have never been for defunding Obamacare once it was voted for, and certainly linking it to the government shutdown was insane.
Are there circumstances in which you would think a government shutdown is satisfactory if, in fact, and for example, say, we'll shut down the government rather than raise the debt ceiling?
If I thought there was a big enough carrot, and to me, that would be serious entitlement reform.
Right.
At the end of the road, I would be willing to flirt with a government shutdown. There was no big carrot at the end of the road. Both parties agreed. The one thing we weren't going to do is cut growth in payments to seniors. we weren't even talking about entitlements. We were talking about other things. Well, basically, we're talking about Obamacare.
Well, the president said that the president has said, whether you believe him or not, that they are certainly prepared. That's what the budget process is about right now, is that you're prepared to look at some changes in entitlement reform in contrast to changing the tax structure and the spending.
The president says a lot of things. The first thing that set me on my media tour and the college tour was the president, when the budget battle started way back in the beginning of last year, stated, I saw it on television, it was like yesterday, the one thing we are not going to do is balance this on the back of seniors.
Right.
That was his initial position. And by the way, I haven't heard a lot different from the Republicans.
But how do you want to balance it on the back of seniors?
Okay, so this is where my role as a philanthropist and my day job intersect.
Right.
All right? So we cut Head Start up in Harlem.
Right.
We're cutting NIH grants where I am at Sloan Kettering.
Right.
But we're not even touching this other stuff. So this is what.
So then that brings us to this point. How would you touch the other stuff?
Okay, so
that's the point.
Yes. Now, I'm going to give you an answer, but the first thing
I think that's also Larry's point to a degree, but we can talk about that.
I'm going to give you an answer, but the first thing I want to say is the first thing I've been trying to do is identify the problem.
Right.
I don't have a monopoly on the truth. So I have my own opinions and I have some suggestions, but I really think the answer to your question needs to be fought out in the political arena. If you're asking me for what my suggestions would be, the first thing we'd have to do is the really low-hanging fruit. You can means test, to a greater extent, Medicare. You can certainly means test Social Security. We haven't even done that.
Yeah.
Okay?
So people like you who don't need Medicare would not get Medicare.
Correct. I would look at it philosophically. This was an insurance safety net we paid into 40 or 50 years. We bought fire insurance. The fire didn't happen. No. Let's give the insurance to the people that need it. Okay, but that's not a whole lot of money.
Right.
Okay? I guess where I also differ even from the Republicans is I would not exempt people over 55. When I look at the share of the pie that the current seniors have gotten the last 40 years, the chain-weighted CPI, that wouldn't even go far enough. I would freeze the thing. Freeze it in terms of Social Security. Now, I will say 30 or 40% of the people really need Social Security, and this is where the means testing come in.
Right.
They should be provided for. I do not want to see seniors in poverty. I also don't want to see...
You don't want to see seniors without medical care, and you don't want to see seniors with all the things that they thought they had a social contract to receive.
Yes, and they're receiving it. Okay, then you get into the elephant in the room, which is the healthcare system. And here it gets very complicated, but let me just say that the first thing you've got to do is put incentives at the consumption level, and it's already happening to some extent through more co-payments used, as you know, and that should start to push down the costs. The second thing is, I think the extent that we have malpractice in this country is causing a lot of tests to be done that don't need to be done, CYA policies by hospitals, so forth. But then you get into some very controversial issues like the end of life. If you have a terminally ill patient who has a 0% chance of living more than 2 months, okay, and it's going to cost $1 million to keep them alive for 2 months, how much should that family pay versus society? I give you a horrible story. When I talked to the University of North Carolina, a crying mother came up to me because her 93-year-old mother had just been put into a hospice, and she was getting thousands of dollars, which she didn't want, for the mother in the hospice, but her 7-year-old daughter couldn't get the money for an operation she needed. And the woman was literally crying. The juxtaposition of the 93-year-old mother who had probably 2 or 3 months to live, getting thousands of dollars, but there was no funding there for the 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And this is why I say Stan Druckenmiller can't make this decision, but it's a conversation
that we have to have as a country.
And we're not having it. We're just saying, okay, as long as we can keep them alive, let's keep them alive.
Well, in order to understand where you are, and this is why some of this is surprising, we obviously have capital gains tax and we have ordinary income. You basically want to see the capital gains tax rise to the rate of the ordinary income.
I think there's a different way to grow the economy.
And I also want to know what your conservative friends think of this.
Okay, so first of all, let's go back to Larry.
Wealthy conservative
Let's
friends.
go back to Larry Summers.
All right.
I think taking the capital gains rate and the dividend rates to ordinary income while you simultaneously lower corporate tax rates to zero would make the economy grow dramatically, and revenues to the government would actually...
And that puts you where Larry is in terms of
increase.
The goal.
But he likes to do it through spending. I like to do it through tax reform in that regard. But
so capital gains would go to the level of ordinary income. You reduce the corporate income tax to zero.
Yes.
You would assume that there wouldn't be double taxation, as some people like to argue. You would pay tax on corporate profits because you'd be a shareholder, right?
Yes. Corporations have presented as like living things to people. They're not. Okay, corporations are owned by shareholders.
Right.
If you tax the shareholder, you're taxing the ultimate beneficiary.
At ordinary income rates.
Yes, and they're clipping coupons. They're not hiring people. They're not engaging in capital spending.
And the corporations are doing that.
Yeah, and you take their rate to zero. And by the way, all this money they talk about overseas, if the corporations take that money and they buy back stock and they issue dividends, that money comes back at a 40% rate. Right. They're not even bringing it back at a 35% rate.
Do you think this has a chance in hell of being politically viable? First question. Second question is the reason you're sitting at this table going to all these campuses is you want to create some kind of political action that might result in it having a chance in hell.
The second question, I want to shine a light on this issue, and I am desperately hoping the young people will start a movement. Do I want to start the movement? I don't think I'm capable. Do I think I can articulate the facts, and have I seen them respond that somebody out there could start a movement? Yes. In my opinion, they were instrumental in getting gay marriage passed. They're moving the needle on the environment. This thing's very similar to the environment,
so
by the way.
On both of those issues, you were on their side.
Yes.
On the gay rights and on the environment.
Still am.
Okay. Well, I mean, still am.
I'm trying to lay out a set of facts and hoping that when they look at those facts, they will start to put political pressure and consider this issue as important as they do the environment and the gay rights.
And do you think you'll find more receptivity in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party?
In the youth?
Yes.
I know what I'll see, which is enthusiasm on both sides. When Jeff Cannon and I have gone, not only have we spoken for an hour, they ask questions for a half an hour, and there are 40 hands left when we lead, and it doesn't matter whether we're at Berkeley, at Brown, or USC, or North Carolina, or it's right or left, they're all there.
No, just explain who Jeff Canada is. First of all, you both went to Bowdoin College. Secondly, he runs...
Jeff Canada runs the Harlem Children's Zone. I have been chairman of the Harlem Children's Zone since its founding.
And they do what?
Good question. There's 100 square blocks up in Harlem. They take children basically from birth all the way through college, throw a bunch of what I would call social antibiotics at them, education, baby college, pre-K, try and get them through college so we can break the cycle of intergenerational poverty up there. And as you know, Charlie...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the word.
Intergenerational poverty.
Okay.
And as you know, there's a bunch of pilot programs, some inspired by the president, to try and copy that model around the country. That's what Jeff Canada does. He runs that.
And you have been his big supporter since the two of you.
I was on his pre-board, his pre-organization, which was the Reedland. And when he founded the Harlem Children's Zone, I became the chairman and have been at his side throughout. You don't have to do much.
Okay, but going, I understand what you're doing in terms of Washington. I mean, in terms of young people and campuses, and also looking to create a movement that has the kind of legs that the same-sex marriage did, and had the same kind of legs that's with some success in the environmental world. When you go to Washington and carry your message, what kind of response do you get there? Whoever, whether it's a finance committee, whether it's...
I went to Washington
Rand Paul.
Believe it or not, in
1994.
And argued to raise the retirement age in 2011 because that's when I knew the demographics. I had very little success. I haven't even gone to Washington this time because it's my view until the young people show them that they're concerned on this issue, the people in Washington will not give a damn about this.
Yeah. Do you think that the government is dysfunctional, obviously, in terms of being able to do some things to address problems as it ought to be? Do you think we can overcome that? And is this, in a sense, where people are saying, look, they can be dysfunctional in Washington if they want to, but we're going to create something, whether it's this kind of issue for you or other people, in which we're going to affect elections and we're going to affect the public mind?
I know we will overcome it, but I don't know what the timeline on that is. We have these phases in America where crazy things happen economically and politically, and what's going on in Washington now will not be sustained. I don't know when it ends. We all pray it ends sometime soon, maybe in the next 5 or 10 years. I have great hope that maybe the right president could bring them together. I don't know what's going to end it, but it will end, and the United States will be fine in this regard.
Okay, so we started this back talking about you and then George Soros, and he's on the left, and you're somewhere on the right, but on social issues are in the center. What does George say about your ideas?
Haven't talked to him about it.
Why not?
Haven't gotten around to it. Both his sons came to me, and they really like it.
No, come on. You're smart on this. Why haven't you gone to talk to him about it?
I probably will in the next. This is pretty new for me, Charlie. I didn't even know I was going to do this.
Yeah.
It'll probably happen in the next month or two. I don't know how he'll think about it. I have been very pleasantly surprised by the reception I've gotten from the intellectual left on this issue when I got to sit down with him and explain my case to them.
Right.
The stuff that's been written about objecting to what I'm saying, I'm not saying. So I don't want to speak for George, but there will be a time in the next few months where I will certainly sit down with him and see what he thinks about it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Back in a moment. Stay with us.